Hi friends, welcome back to Brilliant Blue Reviews. My name is Heather, and in this video I'm going to be giving you my review of the movie Project Hail Mary. Project Hail Mary is one of the movies that I was most anticipating seeing in 2026, and I'm really glad I got to see it today. It was a very, very good movie. I highly enjoyed it. I went with two of my kids, and they both really loved it too. We all give it 5 stars. I highly recommend Project Hail Mary. It was very well done, very high quality movie, just really excellent, very emotional, also very, very funny, really cool and interesting if you like science fiction and space and stuff like that. It was just a really all around great movie. I have not read the book Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I had it on my to read list several different times, but I just never got around to reading it. And if you're a fan of my channel and you follow along, you know that I've had a very difficult time reading for like the past 6 months. I haven't been able to finish a single book in the past 6 months. And I've pretty much just given up right now and decided that I'm going to have to wait for another season of life where I'm not so busy and I'm not so tired to be able to try to read again. I'm just kind of putting a break on it. So I am not normally a big fan of science fiction books. I do enjoy them sometimes when I do read them. And for example, my son read The Martian in school a couple years ago, and he asked me to read it along with him. And so I got a copy of it from the library and I read along with him like at the same time of day when he was in his English class. And I found that the movie was basically exactly the same as the novel. And I noticed that Andy Weir was a producer, an executive producer on this film too, so I wonder if he was on The Martian also. He obviously was very involved in the adaptation of these stories from his novels to the film version. I don't know because I didn't read Project Hail Mary, but I'm imagining that it's very similar to The Martian in that it's almost exactly like what he wrote in the book. Now, there are some limitations, obviously, to adapting a novel into film form. The main thing that I noticed when I read The Martian, having seen the movie The Martian quite a few times, is that they just cut out a lot of the detailed scientific stuff. Just some of the explanations, they just kind of took those away. But for the most part, it was almost word for word, just like the novel, like as far as the scenes, if you will, with people. I imagine that this is kind of similar. I saw a couple other reviewers here on YouTube that gave reviews of this movie, Project Hail Mary, and they said the same thing, like it kind of cut out or shortened some of the sciencey type things just, so they could fit it in the length of a film and not make it too dry and boring and beyond people's understanding. I didn't mind that at all. I thought the film was really well done. I thought the pacing was great. This one was a little bit different because it actually starts out exactly, my understanding is how the book starts out, which is that Ryan Gosling's character, which is Dr. something Grace, I can't remember his first name, wakes up on this spacecraft, the Hail Mary, deep in space, and he's been in an induced coma for an extended period of time, like years. And the robots and stuff on the spacecraft like take out his medical stuff. He was on a breathing tube and things like that. And he's very disoriented and very confused, and takes him a little while to like get his bearings and figure out what's happening and where is he and why is he there. He doesn't remember anything. He kind of has amnesia for a little time. And he's really out of it for a while at the beginning. Then through a series of flashbacks throughout the film, which sometimes I don't like that, but in this case I thought it worked perfectly. I thought that the flashbacks were perfectly timed and perfectly paced. And it's not until almost the very end of the movie that you get the scene that explains to you why he was so disoriented and didn't remember where he was or why he was there. And it's pretty powerful. I really liked how they did that. Flashbacks are shown in chronological order to each other. His character, Dr. Grace, is a school teacher, but he is a scientist. He has a PhD in, I think they said, molecular biology. And he was a very good scientist, but he kind of got sort of blacklisted or shoved out of the scientific community because he had a very strong opinion about something in particular and published a paper or whatever about it and kind of got shunned from the scientific community. And that's why at the beginning of the movie, where we pick up from him in the past, he's teaching science in like a middle school. And that's where the other main character, which they never say her name, I don't know who she is, but she's like the head of Project Hail Mary, and she's German. She comes and finds him in his classroom and kind of recruits him for this project. Now, if you've heard anything about the movie, I won't go too into detail about things because I want to keep this relatively spoiler-free. But basically, the sun, our star, is dying, or at least it's going to get less bright and less powerful, and the Earth is going to cool rapidly to the point where a significant portion, they say this several times, that about a third of the planet will die, will probably starve to death. They have a number of years to solve this problem, but it's a really challenging, difficult thing that they've got to figure out. Through the series of flashbacks, you find out why things happen in the way that they do. And you don't want to go into it with too much information, because it is going to lessen the impact of how things happened and when they happened. If you've read the book already, you're going to know. But if you haven't read the book, or you don't know any more than that, this basic plot, I would encourage you to go into the movie fresh, just like we did today, without too much information, because it will increase the emotional impact of the story, the way they unfold it in the film. Because there are several times where you're like, oh, or like, wow, or like, like, oh my gosh, and so if you can kind of go into it fresh, you'll have more of that feeling, which was good. The things that we really liked, I mean, in addition to, obviously this film had a very big budget and was technically very impressive. There's very minimal actors. I mean, there's quite a few like very small, almost non-speaking roles in the background, in the parts in the past where he's on Earth. But there's very few main characters. It's really kind of Ryan Gosling has to carry this movie alone. He's kind of got to do all of the big acting. Now, later on, he has, which you can see this in the previews, he has his alien friend, Rocky, who comes from another planet called Arid, and they're both there to solve the same problem at this point where they meet each other in space. And they develop a really cool, not only scientific partnership, but a very touching friendship. Rocky basically is like, he's kind of the size of like a medium-sized dog, and he's basically what I would describe as like a rock spider. That's kind of what he looks like, although he only has 6 legs, not 8, so he's not a spider, but kind of like a rock insect. But he does have hands on his front 2 legs. He does not have a face, but one of the most interesting and entertaining parts of the movie we found was when Dr. Grace and Rocky are trying to figure out a way to communicate with each other because they don't have a common language. By the end of the movie, Ryan Gosling's character can understand Rocky completely, even without the assistance of like the AI tool in the computer that they're using. So it's pretty cool how they build the language. I always think that's a very interesting aspect of certain science fiction movies. The other thing it made me think of was like Amy Adams trying to figure out how to communicate with the aliens in the movie Arrival, which I thought was very interesting. The 3 things that I most enjoyed about this movie, though, number 1 was just the story, the plot, what happens in the movie. I thought it was very interesting, exciting, kind of scary in a couple spots and intense, but just also like had a nice mix of other times when it wasn't like that. It was just a really, really good story. The second thing that I really liked was all of the humor. There were a lot of really, really funny moments in this movie that had me literally laughing out loud. So there was a lot of humor. I would say most of that, not all of it, but most of it centered around the relationship between Dr. Grace and Rocky, and like the way they talk to each other and stuff was very funny. And then the third aspect I really liked about this movie was it had a lot of emotion. 3 scenes in particular, maybe 4, that really got me, that were very, very emotional. And I don't want to give away what they were because they'd lessen the impact if you go see it. But there were some really powerful emotional scenes. And I would say in every one of those scenes that I'm thinking of, I have to give huge props to Ryan Gosling for the way he carried those scenes, because it was basically just his emotion and what he was feeling in that moment. And he really did a good job of making you feel it too, and the power of it. And so that was something I really enjoyed about this film, and he did so great in this. Just a couple like other things that I thought were cool or interesting. One was like all the science stuff was neat. Another thing was the use of music in the movie was really interesting. It had a really cool, very diverse soundtrack. And I wasn't expecting that. There was one point where my daughter turned to me and she's like, why is there tropical music playing when they were in space? There was like a really cool reference to the Beatles later on. And I just really liked how they used music throughout the movie to kind of like set the mood and the tone. And my son was actually like looking up the soundtrack and listening to different tracks that he really liked from the movie as we were leaving the theater and on the way home. So the music was really cool too. But overall, this was just a really well done film. I enjoyed it very much, and so did my kids. I would highly recommend you go see Project Hail Mary, and this is definitely a movie that you must see on the big screen. This is very much intended to be seen in a huge screen, in a huge theater. It's actually also an IMAX. When Megan and I went to see a movie recently, we went to see Hoppers, which was the second time for me. We went to the end of the hall at the theater, this one theater that we always go to near her college, and I didn't realize there was an IMAX there, down at that end of the hall, and they were showing Project Hail Mary in the IMAX. I would recommend that. If you like IMAX and you really like the, visual stunning aspect of a movie like this, I would recommend you go see it in IMAX if you have an IMAX near you that's showing it. It's very visually stunning and very much intended to be seen on the big screen. It's already been out for several weeks. We actually thought it was really cool today because we saw this movie on April 2nd, and it came out 2 or 3 weeks ago maybe. We just didn't have the opportunity to go to it sooner than this, and we were kind of waiting for Megan to be home on spring break so we could all go together. But we really thought it was cool and timely that we got to go see this movie in the theater the day after NASA launched Artemis 2, which is the first in a series of missions to go back to the moon for the first time in 50 years. We're really excited about that because we just went to Kennedy Space Center in the summer of 2024 and got to go to a site where they, control room where they launched the original space missions, the Apollo missions and everything, and that was a really cool experience for us. I'll link that video of when we went to visit there up here for you from my other channel, Heather Travels. So be sure to check that out if you're interested in space stuff, because we had an amazing time at Kennedy Space Center. Those are my thoughts on Project Hail Mary. It was an amazing movie. Best movie yet. Well, I haven't had a bad movie yet so far in 2026, actually. I've been pretty selective about what I've gone to see, and I think we gave Hamnet 5 stars too. This is another 5-star movie for us. We all really, really enjoyed it. I would highly recommend Project Hail Mary. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. If you liked it or found it interesting or helpful at all, please be sure to give me a thumbs up. And if you don't want to miss any of my upcoming movie or entertainment reviews, I do have some theater coming up if you're interested in that. And if you want to make sure you don't miss when I finally do get back into reading and have some more book reviews on the channel, make sure you're subscribed. Have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you next time.